Good morning. So one of the interesting things that's going on out there is you've got Spotify and you've got Apple, and both of these companies are really looking at bragging rights for how many songs have been uploaded to their streaming services. So Apple recently announced 100 million. Spotify also has many songs up there, and there's also a statistic that's being bandied about that Spotify, for example, was uploading 100,000 songs a day. I mean, that's a massive amount of content. One of the challenges with uploading that much content, even if you're a large provider, is that what happens with your margins, you keep having to buy more disk space. And so, the margins of Spotify are actually shrinking, and I'm sure Apple's are also shrinking too on their streaming services. And so there will be eventual pressure for prices to increase based on this increasing number of songs. And so, quite frankly, where is all this content coming from? In the 60s and 70s, maybe there were 5,000, maybe 10,000 albums released per year. An album has 15 songs, it's, again, 100,000 songs a day versus maybe 150,000 a year. Well, the real place where all this content is coming from, so the democratization of music production given the modern DAWs and actually relatively cheap or inexpensive equipment to go with this, such as MIDI keyboards, has allowed a massive number of producers out there to create content, without the need for a studio. So the fact is that, the content is increasing. 100,000 songs a day is a lot. The challenge with the whole model, though, as we're all aware, is that in terms of the pyramid of what's actually listened to and has monthly listeners, that top of that pyramid is actually very tiny, in that very few artists are actually receiving any listening and subsequently any money from the streams. In fact, it's probably less than 1/3 of 1% even that actually get listened to on a regular basis. And then streaming royalties, as what they are. I have one person I know that is an artist. They had 1 million streams, and they only netted $1,000 from 1 million streams. And as you know, when you look at those counts out there of the streaming services, there's not many artists that have 1 million streams. And so, where is kind of all this leading to? And in terms of individual producers and hobbyists, and also people that are trying to make a full-time living with this. I think there's things that are fairly evident right now. You have if you're doing music, you also have to be available on all the streaming services. You have to manage your presence on those platforms. You have to provide updates. The ones that are also successful are also doing the the longer videos, instructional videos, combining that with their music and things on other platforms. And so being even a part-time musician and earning a living from this is it's a full-time job at a minimum. And so the other thing, of course, is that you can only make money also by touring and also by merchandise, and those are two other our venues, right? And so at some level, how do you feel about this personally? I think that at a minimum, music creation is an avocation and something that is definitely a worthwhile endeavor in the world, and maybe it just has to be thought of, in that respect. Is that first of all, is the enjoyment of creation, creating something unique, also creating something that you like yourself, and realizing that there may not be an income producing stream out there, and if there is, it might take a long time. I mean, the traditional trajectory of writers is that a lot of writers are not successful until they're well into the later stages of their life, because it's taken that long to build that following and that audience. And so, what does this mean also for the future of music? I think that there are some interesting developments out there. For example, the low latency streaming services that are starting to appear, I think will allow musicians to collaborate virtually with each other. I think that potentially tours of the future may be musicians that may be in multiple countries, all performing live together on a virtual stage. maybe the background is, AI generated images and videos and so on and so forth. So there is, a continued evolution with all of this stuff. I think that, something to think about. The other thing, of course, is that, the pace of change is, like with everything else, with anything online, very rapid. And that pace will also continue. And so as musicians, creators, and artists, I think it's good to keep all this in perspective and still, seek out those new opportunities that may be out there. So anyway, the usual YouTube-y stuff. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, appreciate that because it helps the channel. And if there's any comments you have on this, please feel free to leave them, and ideally we'll get back to you. Thanks, and enjoy your day.